Hi there, here's Christina from Changing Parenting, and in this video I want to show you how you can teach your child to deal with difficult adults, right? With adults that maybe, lose their temper with them and scream at them and believe that that's how you raise children, right? Because very often, if you are following me, of course, you're into positive parenting, and even though perhaps sometimes you scream at your child, you understand that that's not how you want, that your child doesn't deserve that, and you then apologize and all those things. And I have many videos on all that. But this video is not about that. It's about not everyone in the world will agree with your parenting choices, and unfortunately sometimes you need to leave your child in the care of people who have different parenting approaches to yours. So they might believe in authoritarian parenting, right? They might believe in timeouts, they might believe in punishments, they might believe in screaming at children to get them to listen. And sometimes, of course, in an ideal world, your child wouldn't have contact with such people. But unfortunately, we all know that very often your child does need to deal with people like that. And even though in an ideal world, you would be able to talk to those people and say, hey, I think that if you try and do this and that way, from what I know from my child, this would work. So perhaps next time my child misbehaves, you can do this and that, and this will stop the behavior, and all those things. In fact, there are many people who will just ignore you because they just have a completely different approach to how to raise a child, and so they will continue screaming at your child, and this might create a fear in your child to deal with such people. Especially children that are more, sensitive, they might really fear when an adult that is not their parents, especially if it's not their parents, so it's a person that they already, because when children are in the care of people who are not the people they live with every day, even if they meet those people every day, but they are not, like, let's say kindergarten teachers, for instance, children of course have their defenses. They will act in a much different way because they don't have the same level of relationship and confidence that they have with you. So they are already a bit like, I need to put on a mask, I need to behave a certain way, I have to control myself much more. They are much more repressing their feelings and emotions when they are with strangers, or people that are not strangers, but they are not their family, right? So there's already that. So that sense of like they fear those people more than they fear you, let's say like that. But on top of that, when those people punish them, scream at them, and do all these things that they are not used to, receiving from you, because again, perhaps you might scream at your child, but then you apologize, right? It's very different. You having a sleep where you let your emotions be in charge of your parenting, and then you regret it, and then you have a conversation with your child. That's a very different setting to have a person who is not your parent scream at you, and that person actually believes that screaming at you is the way you will learn. So of course it will be a very different dynamic. And unfortunately, in the situations, you are not there to defend your child or anything. So what you need to do is give your child the skills to be able to deal with those situations in a way that protects them, right? And from my experience, what I usually teach parents to teach their children is to always go on because what happens very often is when our emotions are running the show, and especially for those people that really believe in authoritarian parenting, usually what happens is that they need to feel some sort of that feeling of justice has been made. So they will continue screaming at the child. And if the child is that type of scary child that just goes and hides, they feel like they didn't get, like you're not getting the message. So they will go after the child and this is kind of sad, but it's just the way it works. They will go after the child and they will continue screaming even more. Maybe they even punish the child, you know, like, and because what they want is the child to say, I'm sorry, or the child to say, I will not do it again. Or, they want something that they feel like, okay, this child learned their lesson. And of course, because we know that authoritarian parenting doesn't really teach those types of lessons, right? It only teaches fear and, people pleasing and all that. I have also many videos on that. But anyway, what happens is that the first instinct of a child who is not raised with authoritarian parenting is not to say, I'm sorry, right? The first instinct is to hide or maybe even get confrontational, get defensive and enter into a power struggle because they feel like, they are being attacked and they want to attack back. And this makes this type of person, this authoritarian person who is, who is very responsive to their own emotions, feel even more triggered. So it escalates the situation and makes things much harder for the child. So what I usually teach parents to teach their children is to go to the route of telling the child when someone is screaming at you, when it's an adult, not when it's a child, but when it's an adult, when an adult is screaming at you, what you need to do is to interrupt that, I'm so angry right now, and make the person snap out of it and be like, whoa. And the way that I found that works the best is when children say, please stop, I'm scared of you. This is usually what works the best because suddenly it snaps them back to reality of like, hey, maybe I'm being a little exaggerating a bit. So this is what you should teach your child. When an adult is screaming at you, when an adult is punishing you, when an adult is being really mean to you, what you need to do is say, please stop, I'm scared, I'm sorry, I'm scared, please stop, and continue saying, I'm scared, please stop, I'm scared, please stop. And this is usually what helps. And of course, if it's a person that is very, very, it will not work, if it's, hopefully you are not going to leave your child with someone who wouldn't respond emotionally to such, a request from a child, right? So yeah, of course, if it's a person that is maybe in an altered state, that is under the influence of something, or a person who is really very, out of control with their emotions, like filled with anger, filled with resentment, of course, that will not work. And the person might even rejoice in the fact that the child is suffering. But hopefully, of course, you're not leaving your child, if possible, with someone like that. This is more for those cases, for instance, where maybe kindergarten teachers or nannies or, family members who love the child, or at least who respect the child, and that will indeed respond when a child says they are scared of them. So yeah, here's the trick. If you have any questions, let me know.